Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today, we're going to go through some of the news. We're going to be talking about this Brandon Aiyuk situation. We're going to talk about McConkey's huge contract. We're going to talk about Devon Achane being used in the slot more, reportedly, on top of a bunch of other news stories. So go ahead and take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, and good morning to everyone here in the chat. Mark, Sarcasm, John, Snowman, Ryan, Mike, to the house. Everyone listening, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got a good one lined up for you. I hope you're enjoying today's holiday, little federal holiday. Maybe you're home today, enjoying some Wake and Take. So happy Juneteenth. Little bit of African-American Independence Day. Good stuff. Happy that that's happening. Yeah, we've got some football to talk about today. We'll start with, let's go with McConkey's contract. We'll start with McConkey's contract. The amount is not out yet. The total amount and information of content and all the money out there for this contract is not out. But we do know one thing, and that is that McConkey has signed the most guaranteed money and in a 4-year contract for a second-round draft pick on their rookie deal, and specifically the 34th overall pick. Why do we mention the 34th overall pick? Well, because last year, Sam Laporta broke that record, and there's some other really interesting players that have been picked with that 34th overall pick over the last few years, namely, of course, McConkey this year, Sam Laporta last year, Christian Watson the year before that, and even Michael Pittman was a 34th overall pick, which is interesting, which is just very interesting. The contract that Sam Laporta signed, breaking this record last year, was a 4-year, $9.5 million contract with a $4 million signing bonus and 7.5 of that guaranteed for an annual salary of $2.4 million. So given that we know that McConkey's contract is larger than that, we can assume it's probably at least 4 years, $10 million. And we can also probably assume that a good chunk, if not all of that, is actually a fully guaranteed contract. If 7.5 of Sam Laporta's 9.5 was guaranteed, and we know that this is the most guaranteed money ever seen for a contract for the 34th overall pick, then we know it's more than $7.5 million guaranteed, and there's not much more to go than just fully guaranteeing the contract. So again, we don't know the full details, but we do know that the Chargers are totally in on McConkey. And I talked about it when this pick happened. One of the most interesting things to me was that McConkey was picked by the Chargers because McConkey's profile is so similar to Roman Wilson's. And Roman Wilson just spent all, his college with Jim Harbaugh. They already had that connection together. So I thought it was very interesting that the Chargers did trade up even to get McConkey and lock him in. And now we're hearing that, they're signing him to the most guaranteed money for the second round draft pick ever. That means that they are sold on this player, whether it be something they saw at rookie mini camps, whether it be something they saw at OTAs, whether they saw it anything they saw at the mandatory mini camps, or just on the film. Either way, this Chargers front office and this Chargers coaching staff is very much a believer in McConkey, which means we have to believe it too. This is going to be a player that is going to be force-fed targets. Again, my big question mark with McConkey is the ceiling. I think he could easily, get 100 targets, 75 catches, right? But my question is always, how many yards is that going to be and how many touchdowns is that going to be? And that's still where I'm having trouble wrapping my head around his value. I think he's incredible for PPR leagues. And in fact, I just took him in a startup using the Scott Fishbowl scoring settings from last year. Shout out to the Subway division from last year's Scott Fishbowl. We actually started a startup together last week just with the fellas. It was a good little division. So we kept the scoring settings and actually drafted McConkey as my first wide receiver. It's full PPR. You get point bonuses for first downs and all that stuff. And that just seems like a really good format for a McConkey type receiver. So if you're in that, if you get the first down bonuses, if you have the full PPR, I think McConkey is going to be a true stud in that format. But, half PPR standard, I'm still not quite there. I think like his ceiling is Hunter Renfro's, 11th overall season from a couple years ago, where he had like over 1,000 yards, like 100 receptions and a few touchdowns. Like I think that's his ceiling, which of course there's nothing wrong with that. I think Ladd McConkey's a very talented receiver. We talked about it even going back to the Senior Bowl. He was a standout. It's just his value to me is interesting when it comes to, where people are taking him in rookie drafts, in redraft as well. I feel like he's being taken at his ceiling and already valued at his ceiling, but I also do think he has an incredibly high floor, so I don't really think you're going to get burned. Either way, if he's out there for a reasonable price, I don't mind buying into Ladd McConkey, and I do want to be holding on to him. I mean, obviously, Quentin Johnson is terrible, and Joshua Palmer is fine. Ladd McConkey actually does have a really big chance here to lead the team in targets. Again, we'll see what that means for receiving yards and touchdowns. But either way, it's looking like he is earning a huge role. And the Chargers are very much in on their rookie wide receiver. So congratulations to Ladd McConkey on the big contract. And congratulations to everyone that's maybe held on to him or drafted him, as he's probably going to get a little bit of an uptick in value when the full details of this contract come out. So that is the Ladd McConkey situation. We can go ahead and move on to Devon Achane, as it is being reported that he is lining up at receiver for the mandatory minicamps with the Dolphins. This is what the quote says itself, and this is what Devon said. Just me lining up at different positions as far as like receiver, running routes and stuff. That's something that we're doing different this year, and that's something I've been doing in the offseason. Last year, of Achane's 300 snaps, 100 of them came in the slot or out wide per PFF. Only Cordarrelle Patterson lined up outside the backfield on a greater percentage of his snaps among the 68 running backs who had at least 50 carries. Last year, we know that Achane had 27 catches for 197 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he's, of course, also going to be able to soak up some knowledge from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Achane said that I've got some of the best receivers in the room. During OTAs, I was out there running routes with them when they weren't here, and I did that with them. Basically, why not? Our receiver room is one of the greatest, and if I want to do the stuff they want me to do, might as well take tips and learn from them. Coach Mike McDaniel said earlier this offseason that Achane's familiar with the team offense will allow the Dolphins to use him in more ways this season. The running backs coach, Eric Studsville, said he's not a rookie anymore. He knows he belongs in the league, and now it's just a matter of putting him in the position to succeed. Achane went on to say that last year he played at 188 pounds and has increased his weight, but not by that much this offseason. The full quote, I came off a lot of injuries last year, so basically just maintaining my body, keeping my weight up. That's the main thing I've been focused on because, he missed a few games with injuries last year. So there's 2 things to look at here with this kind of article interview situation thing. One, Devon Achane is going to line up as a wide receiver a lot, it sounds. Again, he did that last year on a third of his snaps. 100 of his 300 snaps last year, he was lined up in the slot or out wide. That's an incredible number. Again, that is second highest among running backs last year, only behind Cordarrelle Patterson. So it's interesting and it's intriguing. And again, just makes us want to draft Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright. If they want to use Devon Achane as a wide receiver for some snaps, then they're still going to have a running back there. So again, I say this thing is going to be a committee, and everyone is going to be successful. Get your Miami Dolphins with Devon Achane. I will say, I have been selling him at the RB6 price tag right now. If he really is going to be lining up as a slot receiver on top of his explosive runs, I mean, it might actually be worth it to just hold on to him. Not going to lie. That ceiling is pretty nice when you see it. And if he's going to be out there running slot snaps, that's pretty damn awesome. I'm not going to lie. Especially, kind of hearing that he already did it a third on his snaps last year, and he was pretty productive having the 200 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, pretty damn good for Devon Achane last year. And if he could keep that up, then that's a player we want on our teams. He's, of course, still very, very expensive. And like I said, I have kind of been selling him, but it's tough. It kind of varies from league to league. Some leagues you can get, Jonathan Taylor. Some leagues you can't even get Kenneth Walker for him. So it varies widely from league to league. If you're in one of those leagues where you can't get a lot for him, just hold on to him. I'm sure that his ceiling in season is still going to be immaculate. But we need to remember at the end of this interview, He says that he played at 188 pounds last year and increased his weight this offseason, but not by that much. That is not great news. Like, obviously, we've heard that he's increased his weight, and we know that he did it last year as well. I remember actually it was reported he was up to 192, but apparently he did end up losing some weight. If he can get up to that 192, 195, and of course if he can get to that 200, that's really what we're looking for. But to say that he hasn't increased his weight by that much, that's a little bit concerning. As we know, he did have the injuries last year, and that's kind of the big thing with Achane, is how explosive he is, but also how injury prone he seems to be. So if he's not really adding that weight, that then brings me back to the other side of, well, maybe I don't want to hold on to him. Maybe I do want to capitalize on that high value you could get for him. So I'm just going to say it again. It kind of varies from league to league. If you can get that King's ransom, definitely do it. If you're, struggling to flip him where he's valued, then just hold on to him. But because, his explosiveness is still going to be incredible, and he's still going to have some spike weeks and still be really, really good for our teams and Dynasty. You just kind of got to weigh your options there. But either way, sounded like he's going to get some receptions next year. And it also sounds like all the Dolphins are going to be worked in as a running back if Devon Achane is going to be out there as a wide receiver. Would I rather have Achane or JSN? Probably Achane. JSN's down there in the mid-20s wide receiver range. Achane, of course, isn't. He's valued a bit higher. I feel like you could probably get a JSN plus. Now, if that plus is pretty nice, then that could be a good little trade, because I do like JSN. And why don't we go ahead and use that as a little bit of a segue, as there is some hype building around Jackson Smith-Njigba from the Seattle Seahawks. This is what head coach Mike McDonald had to say about him. He's a guy that we can focus our offense around along with other guys. Tyler Lockett is still a great player. DK Metcalf's a phenomenal player. The runners, Noah Fant, he's definitely going to be a massive piece of what we're trying to do offensively. Jackson is. They went on to say that, last year he fractured his wrist in the second preseason game, so he kind of battled health, but still finished the year with 63 receptions for 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. Admittingly, Jackson Smith-Njigba said that it took a couple games to get comfortable, but did go on to talk about the parallels of his transition to the NFL to how he started career, because it was his sophomore season at Ohio State where he did truly explode for 1,600 receiving yards off of 95 receptions, also getting 9 touchdowns. And that was with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave still there. So yes, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are there, but so is JSN, who's been productive with a crowded wide receiver room before. We know that this is going to be an offense that's going to throw the ball a decent bit with Ryan Grubbs back there. And it also seems that they're going to be running these 3 wide receiver sets a lot more often than they did last year. Jackson Smith-Njigba went on about his rookie season. He said, I feel like it was a good foundation that I can grow from. There were a lot of ups and downs, but kind of similar to my first years of college and in high school, where I was able to break out in my second year. He went on to then talk about, just his usage last year. And he said, being on the outside, I feel like it's more of a one-on-one matchup, and I love those one-on-one matchups. Being on the inside, there's some one-on-one matchups and a lot of zone, just reading the defense and sitting there, which I feel like I'm also pretty good at. But when it's one-on-one or being on the outside, it's more of a playground a little bit, and that's what I like. I like the challenge. Head coach Mike McDonald said, JSN's just a hard cover. He can play outside, inside, and Grubb does a great job of moving guys around and finding some matchup. His lower body power and flexibility and being able to accelerate, and obviously having great hands and being able to track the ball, is pretty impressive. He went on to say JSN is a great player and we're expecting big things out of him. He's had a great offseason working his tail off. His practice habits are awesome. His moving ability is pretty elite. I think we have a really cool plan for him. And the last thing I want to talk about here is Mike McDonald. We hear the head coach gushing about him, but do we remember that back in 2021, Mike McDonald was actually the University of Michigan's defensive coordinator, and on the opposite sideline, JSN played against them in the game. He had 11 receptions for 127 yards, and we know that Mike McDonald tried his damnedest to game plan against him, and, it didn't work. So I'm sure that Mike McDonald is foaming at the mouth to be able to use this player that kind of burned him. Now, of course, Michigan still won the game. Let's go. But still, Jackson Smith-Njigba, lit Michigan's secondary on fire. And that was a year that their secondary was awesome. Well, they kind of have always been awesome with Harbaugh and McDonald. But either way, him seeing Jackson Smith-Njigba on the opposite sideline, even back to when he was the college coordinator at Michigan, I think that I think that even that is a nice little tie here, and I do believe it. I am buying into Jackson Smith-Njigba at his current price tag right now because why not? This was a player that we were so excited for last year, and he just got himself a little bit of a bad landing spot. But Shane Waldron is gone. We're bringing in Ryan Grubb, who last year was second in college football in pass attempts at the University of Washington. All three of the wide receivers, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and Rome Odunze had very successful seasons. I think we can expect a lot of the same in Washington. We've already heard Geno Smith say that this is a drop-back offense and that he feels very comfortable in it. DK Metcalf is, of course, going to be awesome, and I'm sure Tyler Lockett will be awesome while he's healthy, but so is JSN. They used their first-round pick on him last year. We've got the new head coach, the new coordinator. Things are going to be different. So I think that we should be buying into JSN right now. I still think he has a ton of ceiling. And again, like Lad McConkey in these PPR leagues, I think JSN could end up being a cheat code as he's probably going to be relied upon all over the field, but especially in some of those more intermediate things as Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf can excel a bit more deeper down the field. So look for JSN to have a pretty solid second season here. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty excited for it, and I'm going to be buying into him. So JSN hype is building. We'll move on now to T. Higgins. T. Higgins did officially sign his one-year tender, the franchise tag, if you will, with the Cincinnati Bengals. He is now going to show up for the rest of mandatory camps and will be playing for the Bengals this year. Some people are thinking that this is it. And there's a lot of things to talk about here with T. Higgins. And I think really what you've got to ask yourself is, do you think he's on the way out? And then if you think that, what type of T. Higgins season do you think we're going to get? Last year, we kind of thought the same thing. Is he on the way out? Is he going to give it his all? And we saw he really did it. We saw last year he kind of phoned it in. T. Higgins has even come out himself and said that. He said that last year he was just too focused on his contract. And this year he doesn't plan to think about it. He just wants to go out and play ball. So I'm going to take him at his word for it and think that T. Higgins is balling out this year, whether it be to try to earn himself a contract with another team or a contract with the Cincinnati Bengals next year. If you look at their contract situation next year and their salary cap, the Cincinnati Bengals are not as in bad of shape as I thought. They actually have $55 million in cap space next year, which is the 10th most in the NFL. And that's with Joe Burrow's already extended and them taking the fifth-year option on Jamar Chase, which is already a $21 million contract. Of course, Jamar Chase is probably not going to play on that fifth year. I'm sure that he's going to, either hold out or try to negotiate an extension. But either way, with $55 million in cap space next year and 21 of it already going to Jamar, you would figure that they could at least throw another 10 to 15 and still have $40 million in cap space available to play around with, which is tons of money to still be able to bring in T. Higgins. So I would say, don't think that this is just it for the Cincinnati Bengals. I would say that they have some opportunity here to still have T. Higgins on their roster, even going into next season and beyond. Looking at their salary cap situation, it is not as bad as it seemed. So I am actually maybe going to be buying into T. Higgins. And this is a player I kind of been fading a little bit most of his career, but I think at this point he has gone down a lot. And I think a lot of people are doing that because of the uncertain future. But when I look at the Bengals salary cap situation, I think that they could actually pull it off, keeping these two in town for whatever they want to pay. So, and even if they don't, right, then he's probably just going to be an alpha somewhere else. So T. Higgins, an interesting buy right now if you can get in at the right price. The next bit of information we have is around Austin Ekeler and why he left the Los Angeles Chargers, why he requested that trade. This is what he said. I think you can kind of see by how they've been building the team so far this offseason. They went out and drafted a tackle in the first round. They brought in some bigger backs from Baltimore. So it's like, hey, they want a guy that they can hand the ball off to 300 times a year. And look, I don't have the capacity to do that. That's not my game. That is not how Austin Ekeler is going to be best on the field. So there was a misalignment there, which no harm, no foul. I'm just going to find somewhere else where Austin can be the best version of myself out there. I see a lot of people dissing Austin Ekeler for this. I actually love it. He's 29 years old, and he's always been like more of a receiving back than a running back. I think it's fair that he wants to get out of a situation where he's not going to be able to excel at the end of his career. Like, sure, he'd be fine. Like, he's been an okay running back between the tackles, but he's still best catching passes out of the backfield. And it just seems that the philosophy switch isn't going to be good enough for him there. Now he gets to go to Washington, where Cliff Kingsbury's there. There's going to be a ton of passing work available for Austin Ekeler. So it's a good fit for him. It really is. And it's a good fit for the Chargers, too, to be able to move on. They were able to bring in those Ravens guys, and they were able to draft Kamani Vidal. I think it's a win-win situation for both people, and I don't really get why Austin Ekeler is catching some flack for this quote. He doesn't need to carry the ball 300 times. That's not who he is. I think it's a great decision by him to try to get away from that. He's at the end of his career. Let him finish it how he wants. And I'm glad that the Chargers, kind of listened to his request and were able to ship him away. So Austin Ekeler, congratulations. And I wish you the best in Washington next year. I've talked about it a couple times. I do think he's a sneaky value right now. I really do. I think that there is some PPR value to be had for Austin Ekeler next season and beyond. We have two more stories for you. We'll start with Deontay Johnson. This is quick. Deontay Johnson has been seeing the wide receiver market bubbling up and has, kind of taken a little bit of offense to it. As we know, he signed a 3-year extension this year for roughly $40 million, which is a decent bit of money. It really, really is. But he feels he is worth more than that. This is what he said. He feels like I'm a diamond in the rough. I'm just going to keep elevating and carry that chip wherever I go because I still get overlooked and still don't get the respect I deserve. So it just makes me go harder, keep putting it on film, putting it in the league that I'm one of the best separators out there. So Deontay Johnson is fired up. You absolutely love to hear it. And it's really cool because, the Panthers really, really do need help in the wide receiver room. And it really could come from Deontay Johnson or it could come from Xavier Legette. But either way, hearing that someone is fired up in this room and ready to, put the league on notice, have that chip on his shoulder, that's what you want to hear. It could be both DJ and Xavier Legette, really. And I believe him, right? He still has that 1,000-yard season Deontay Johnson does. He still has some of those spike weeks as a receiver, and he's those better separators from around the league. So I'm buying into the hype. I'm buying into him believing in himself, especially since he's like wide receiver 40. What could go wrong, really? If we believe that Bryce Young is going to take a step forward this year, then I think you kind of have to be buying into Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, even as we know that it's not going to be Jonathan Mingo. It's not him. It's not him. So anyway, DJ looking cool. Feeling fired up by the wide receiver market, kind of leaving him in the dust. So that is that situation. And there's actually a couple more things coming out from the Panthers regarding their rookies. I actually saw this just before going live, so I wasn't really too prepared to talk about it. But I did want to share these videos with you guys. These are from the Panthers YouTube video they made about the draft and for their blueprint of 24. It's a really, really cool YouTube video. And Josh Norris over at Underdog has taken a couple clips from it. This is what they had to say about Mr. Xavier Legette. Check it out.
All right, so this guy, one of my conviction guys.
So you got to start with the combination of size and speed and mobility. Over 6 feet, 220 pounds that can run like he does. There's only a few guys that come along like that, and it only happens every couple of years. It's really special to watch, and you know it immediately.
Yes, sir. What's going on, Pop? Yes, sir. I ain't gonna lie, boy. I feel different with that helmet on, boy. Helmet tight than a mother, boy. Push him to him. We blocking the corner unless it's quarters or late rotation. Yeah. There you go. I got the big ball.
To watch the way he attacks the ball. He goes up and gets it. This is a guy that plays big to the ball.
His blueprint for me is that contested catch, going up, getting the ball, coming down with it. He's a good athlete. He has good play speed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He can out-muscle almost any defender. I thought he burst off the line of scrimmage. He's a long strider. He goes up that speed quickly.
When he gets the ball in his hands, he's a threat to score a touchdown at any time.
He was our target. We really liked him, and we went and got him.
So you woke up a Carolina Panther this morning. Did you have to pinch yourself a little bit?
Oh, no, man. I woke up ready, man. I got a call right after I got dressed. They was coming to pick me up at 9:30 in the morning. I told him I'm going to be ready.
So yeah, that is what they had to say about Xavier Legette. I think it's very cool. We'll show another video here in a second what they said about Jonathan Brooks. But I mean, I gotta say, that is one of the best rookie hype tapes we've seen this offseason. Just super well produced, having the clips coming in of, you know, the highlights on top of just the coaches and scouts talking about what they like about the player. That's how you make a hype video right there. Very documentary-esque, very cool. Again, highly recommend checking out the YouTube video. It's called The Panthers Blueprint 24 on YouTube. And that is what they had to say about Xavier Legette. I will say a lot of what they said about Xavier Legette is not what I personally saw about Xavier Legette at the Senior Bowl. Now, that is just one small sample, and I don't think he stood out that much at the Senior Bowl, gonna be completely honest with you. But NFL teams kind of saw the different thing. You know, he didn't finish the Senior Bowl. He actually didn't show up the third day. I'm assuming that means scouts or agents or whatever told him that he did enough. I'll say that he was okay at the Senior Bowl. I would say that he didn't look as big as I thought he would look. I'll tell you that. Again, one of the things I said when I got to the Senior Bowl was I thought that Ryan Flournoy was actually Xavier Legette, which was a little shocking to me, given that, you know, Xavier Legette is 30 pounds heavier and 3 inches taller, supposedly. But either way, he did have a couple big catches. The contested catch ability that the scout did mention is true. He did have a couple of those, but he did still struggle with separation and coming off the line, and a little bit of his route running was a bit unpolished, is what I'll say. But, you know, you can fix some of those things with camp, and it's not like he's going to be asked to be a wide receiver one. That's probably going to be DJ. So Xavier Legette is going to have a little bit of opportunity to, you know, polish some of that stuff before actually being asked to be the main guy in Carolina. So I would say temper expectations year one. I do still think he's a bit rawer than some of the hype is building up, but I do still think he has a lot of potential. Of course, those physical traits are undeniable. So this is what they had to say about Jonathan Brooks.
Because you want running back.
Yeah.
You don't know if you get the running back down there.
I'm scared. Brooks was another guy that we had conviction on, you know, the scouts, the coaches, and we didn't want to lose out on him. We felt like there was always the chance that somebody could trade over us to get him. And I knew that other teams thought that he was the best back in the draft too.
So we said, all right, if we're going to trade back to 52, we're going to have to play.
Which, by the way, this looks like a skit. I don't know who this is supposed to be, but why did they just have a dude in an Old Navy Carolina Panthers shirt in this? Like, at least put him in a suit or something. Like, this looks like an Onion video. Like, they just, like, picked a dude off the street and said, talk about the Carolina Panthers while wearing this t-shirt. That's what I got when I looked at this. That's my little aside, little joke there. He doesn't look like he fits for this video. Like, again, it's like an Old Navy Panthers shirt. He looks like he's in like a different room. I don't know. It looks a little off-putting, but anyway, we'll get back to the video.
And to trade up to get one of the players who we want, and luckily it was Jonathan.
I think we should do our 2-5s because the Giants have Brooks in for a 30 visit.
Yep.
I think we should do
142 and 155.
Okay, great.
We'll call in here. Yep.
Look how fired up they are.
Carolina Panthers select Jonathan Brooks, running back, Texas.
You know, when you watch the tape of Jonathan Brooks, he's just so versatile. He's a really good runner on first and second down. He's so smooth. He has great vision.
He sees the field. He sees the small holes. He presses the runs the right way with the right tempo. Just such a great awareness for where he's at in space to be able to make plays. And he does it really effortlessly.
Yeah, Brooks there. That's hard not to pull through.
I love that dude.
Yeah, I love that dude.
Football is the focus for him. His size and speed, good play strength between the tackles, breaking out the tackles, that good vision and instincts for a big guy.
To be able to get him for what we want to be offensively, he's exactly what we're looking for.
Doing that trade.
Dave and Nicole Pepper, obviously, you know, they're.
So yeah, hearing Dave Canales say for what we want to be next season, Jonathan Brooks fits exactly that. That should give you a little bit of confirmation in their pick of him and also just make you want him so much. We saw last year how good Rachaad White was in that offense in Tampa. We know that a running back is going to be a very big focal point of this offense, not only as a runner, but also as a pass catcher. And to see how excited they were to draft him, to see what come up before the trade up, to hear what they said about what they saw on film, I mean, it just makes you overly ecstatic even for this player. We've talked about it before. I think that he is my number one buy on the Panthers, him and Bryce Young. I really do think that when Jonathan Brooks is healthy is when we're going to see the shift in this offense. Chuba Hubbard's been fine, but an elite running back, if Jonathan Brooks actually becomes that, really, really can save an offense and make everything work. The defenses, say what you want about Chuba Hubbard, they're not really worried about him. They'll let them beat him. They'll let him beat them. But I think if you get a Jonathan Brooks back there, you're going to have to be a bit more honest. So when that happens, I still think it's going to be a few weeks for him to get to healthy. I think Chuba Hubbard's going to be pretty special early in this, maybe not special, pretty useful early in the season before Jonathan Brooks gets going. But when he does, I think that's when this offense becomes unlocked as a whole. And that's, I think, further evidenced by, Dave Canales saying, he fits exactly what we're trying to do. And so I want Jonathan Brooks wherever I can get him. Which leads us to the final topic of today's show. What is going on with Brandon Aiyuk? Well, we had a little bit of an update this weekend. I don't know if you've seen this video yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and play this for you guys as well. This was posted to Brandon Aiyuk's TikTok. This is him talking to Jaden Daniels.
Bro, look in the cam, bro. Look at the cam.
He got me vlogging this shit.
Bro, what? They said they don't want me back. I swear.
Oh my.
So yeah, I mean that's really it. That's the clip. If you guys aren't privy, wait, is this true? Please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me this isn't true, Jeff. I haven't seen anything yet. No way that's true. I hope that you're lying because I don't like that move at all. I don't see anything with it. So I'm just going to say you're lying. But for those of you who are not privy, Brandon Aiyuk and Jaden Daniels did play together in college. Brandon Aiyuk's, of course, best season in college was at Arizona State. When Jaden Daniels was quarterback, he had his first 1,000-yard season, had multiple touchdowns, yada, yada, yada. Brandon Aiyuk calling his college quarterback and friend, telling him that the San Francisco 49ers told him that they don't want him anymore. We'll see, right? I mean, as we talk about a few times, sometimes these things become public for negotiation purposes, but it is a little just weird and off-putting, to bring Jaden Daniels into it as a rookie. Like, Brandon Aiyuk, could you stop with the drama thing and then definitely not put the drama on a rookie quarterback? But then also, what do we have to be public about this whole thing? But either way, I guess I like hearing it. It's just interesting to kind of get the behind the curtain stuff. And if it is true, then that is incredible news. But you would just think that it wouldn't get leaked via TikTok, but that is, I guess, the age we live in. For those of you who are, kind of skeptical of this, Ian Rappaport is too. Ian Rappaport did, come out and say that this isn't exactly true. He said that, to his knowledge, negotiations are still happening, but Brandon Aiyuk is not budging. And that's the situation here, is the 49ers are just not willing to meet Brandon Aiyuk's request of Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract of $28 million a year. And I'm with them. I get it, right? Brandon Aiyuk had a very effective season last year, incredibly efficient, off of way less targets than Amon-Ra St. Brown ever gets. But that's the thing. He is not relied upon in the same way that an Amon-Ra St. Brown is. That guy is the heartbeat of the Detroit Lions offense. And yes, the stats are similar. And yes, Brandon Aiyuk was more efficient, but they're different types of receivers in different schemes. And Brandon Aiyuk is not an Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's just not. So I don't think the 49ers will meet that request, to be completely honest with you. I really do think that either Brandon Aiyuk is going to have to budge or he's going to have to get traded. I don't know. None of us know where the 49ers are at, but we know where Brandon Aiyuk is at, where he feels he's worth. And I don't think that I think he's worth that. And I don't think the 49ers thinks he's worth that either. That's a lot of money to spend on a receiver. And they already regret the Deebo Samuel contract. And he's a player while he maybe not have as good of stats as Brandon Aiyuk the past couple seasons, he's a player that could actually put the team on his back, and he's done that before. So while Deebo Samuel maybe doesn't have the 1,300 yards that Brandon Aiyuk had last year, he still gets the carries, he gets all the receptions and the yak stuff. And if Brandon Aiyuk goes, I could see him just being utilized a ton more. And I don't think Brandon Aiyuk is worth that money. I just don't. I know he was really good last year, but the arguments are always going to be, oh, well, it's a scheme thing, it's a system thing, all the weapons on the team make it where defenses can't focus on Brandon Aiyuk. And I think that's just fucking true. I just think that's true. I really do think that if Brandon Aiyuk was to be a wide receiver 1 somewhere, he would not be anywhere as good as he is right now. And that is why, again, I say sell Brandon Aiyuk really for whatever you can get. I would say we could talk about players on this show. If you can get Brandon Aiyuk for, or if you can get JSN in like a second for Brandon Aiyuk, just do it. If you could get, who else did we talk about today? If you could use Brandon Aiyuk to get into Devon Achane, if you could get Lad McConkey plus, if you could get T. Higgins plus, if you could just get some picks, maybe even Jonathan Brooks as we hyped him up enough. But I just think that the wide receiver position is so deep that you don't need a wide receiver valued at his ceiling right now. I think that there's a ton of potential to offload Brandon Aiyuk for a different wide receiver that's cheaper and just hope that they hit. Like, you could go way deeper. You could get J-Mo, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, if you believe in those players, and get a really nice cherry on top. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with Brandon Aiyuk. I don't want the risk anymore. Some people do. I don't. In fact, I've never had a Brandon Aiyuk share, and I don't think I ever will at this point. It just seems that he's got a little bit of a confidence issue, a little bit overconfident, and maybe a little bit of a drama issue as well. Like, again, I don't really like that he is bringing in Jaden Daniels to this thing. I know that they're friends, but let the drama center around you. I don't think you need to bring someone else into the muck personally, but maybe that's just me. But either way, I think that this is a bad thing right now. I think as it continues to develop, it'll only get worse too. As this, we've got a few weeks now that nothing's going to happen. We've got nothing going on for the next few weeks. Ian Rappaport said that if nothing is solved by the end of July, when the true training camp starts, that's when everyone should start getting worried. But I'm just going to start getting worried now. Again, if we could just trade him, it's fantasy football, guys. There's so many wide receivers. There are 32 NFL teams, which means there are 32 wide receiver 1s and 32 wide receiver 2s, right? There are 64 really good wide receivers pretty much available, and Brandon Aiyuk is valued at the top. I think you could get rid of him for enough right now, and yes, you might regret it, but I don't think you will. This is what's a good example here? Who's a wide receiver that was in a similar valuation and situation from the past few seasons? Trying to think here. We'll just say Antonio Brown. I don't know, a little bit less of a situation there, but Antonio Brown's not a fair one. He was too good. He was way better than Brandon Aiyuk ever was. But there's a good one out there. I can't think of it. Maybe Julio. No, not. I keep thinking of these really, really good receivers that did this. Hunter Renfrow? Could Hunter Renfrow be a good choice? He had his big season, kind of held out a little bit. Either way, maybe Stephon Diggs is kind of a good one, but even then, I don't think Brandon Aiyuk is as good as Stephon Diggs is. Again, Brandon Aiyuk is very good, but the difference between a Brandon Aiyuk and a Stephon Diggs and an Amon-Ra St. Brown and an Antonio Brown and a Julio Jones is that those guys can be an entire offense, and I just don't think Brandon Aiyuk could. I just don't think he could. If he went exactly as Too Rich and Bree TV says in the chat, I guess you're not saying this. I don't think if he went to be the wide receiver 1, I don't think it would be good for him. If he went to the Panthers, for example, I think it would be fine, right? I think it would just be fine. Just fine. And that's not bad. I'm not saying it'd be bad. I just think it'd be fine or good. And that's the thing is I don't want good assets. I want great or okay assets. I don't want the in between. I want to take some ceiling shots here. And I think we've seen the ceiling from Aiyuk personally. But we'll see. We will see. So anyway, do we have any questions? That is all I've got for you. In the chat, what do we got? Tell us how you really feel about Aiyuk. True. I traded Henry and Kirk for Aiyuk at the end of the NFL season. Oof. See, here's what I mean. I mean, you could probably do that trade again, to be completely honest with you, Jeff. Like, you could probably take your Aiyuk and go get Christian Kirk and Derrick Henry again. And that's not bad. That's not bad. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I do not see any other questions, actually. Oh, Achane or Pickens plus. It depends on what that plus is for Pickens. I will say this. As much of a Pickens believer I am, I do think he's at his ceiling too. I've been a huge Pickens believer since his rookie season. I love the player. I love the person. I love his tenacity. I do not like his situation right now. I like the Steelers' values for the quarterbacks. I do. But there is one thing about the Arthur Smith system. While it has been conducive to quarterback success, it has not really ever been conducive to wide receiver success. It is spread around a decent bit. I think that Pickens, could have a 1,000-yard season, but I don't think he could have a 1,500-yard season. And that's kind of the discrepancy there. With him being already like a wide receiver 24, I don't see it changing that much, at least going up. But I also don't see it changing much going down. So he's like a hold kind of buy at the right price. But I will say that I want to see the plus pretty nice here. I don't think that George Pickens has a great season to Brandon Aiyuk point, right? Like, I think that George Pickens is just going to be good to very good, but I don't see a great ceiling from him anymore with this new system in place. With Roman Wilson there, I think Pat Freiermuth is going to be a big piece, and they're just going to run the ball so much with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. So I like George Pickens a lot, but I do think he's kind of at his ceiling right now. Ron says, I didn't even stop and be with. Yeah, no, I am so used to this bird. Anyway, that should do it, guys. I believe that should do it. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is another fun episode of Wake and Take. And you guys were a fantastic audience, as always. Make sure you hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the Player Profiler YouTube and also the Player Profiler News YouTube. That would be very cool of you. And also find the Wake and Take podcast via link in the description. You can listen to Wake and Take in the car, on your walks, whatever. I hope to see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern as we have some more Wake and Take action for you. And yeah, you have a wonderful Wednesday and a fantastic rest of your week. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.